Good evening, Sanctuary Online, my friends. It is a beautiful August evening. Cheryl and I are down here in Chicago, just helping some friends out. We're in a beautiful lake house, so we're enjoying some pontoon rides, whether it be with a glass of wine at night or a cup of coffee in the morning.
Nice.
And nothing better at feeding your soul than a quiet morning on the water with birdies all around and just a wonderful time. So tonight we are going to talk about a book that is, man, oh man, it's got a lot of conversation going. And I know it's an August night, so I thank you for those of you who are here. But tonight is talking about a boy and his dog at the end of the world. Bud, this is on you, right? That you offered this book up, and I can't wait for this conversation. I do want to remind anyone who's watching us on recording that you are in for a treat on September 6th. We're going to continue our summer schedule every other week, sort of, through September. And the next up on September 6th is Sanctuary Kitchen with Cheryl offering something we call Chicken Little. And it's a gorgeous chicken with lemon and capers, or hold on, capers carried by lemon on chicken. You know, the most important thing first, right? Capers. I never had a caper in my life until I met this dish, and it was the one that Cheryl's mother cooked the first time I met her, so I'll never forget that. And roasted, Cheryl?
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. Okay, so mark your calendars, and then we'll also be doing a book club at the end of the month, which is going to be on the 27th, the book TBA at the end of your rousing conversation tonight. So Cheryl, as I always do, I am handing these really good-looking folks over to you.
Thank you. I love being surrounded by really good-looking folks. So.
Never a problem. There you go. They're all yours.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you all for coming and participating in this. I think this was a fabulous book, and it'll be very fun to talk about. Before we go into it, start already. If you have books that you want to do for next week, go ahead and stick them in the chat, and we'll look at them at the end of this time, okay? So I hope everybody has one or brought something or whatever, so that we can figure out the next one or two. All righty then. Well, did everybody finish the book?
No.
Besides Kelly? Yes?
Twice. I read it twice because I read it 2 months ago and I had to refresh.
Yeah, there you go. Good, bud. I'm glad you did refresh. I want to make sure.
I learned more.
I bet. Yes. The second time around, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And Kelly, I'm sorry that we will spoil it for you, but we will.
That's okay. That's okay.
Probably with the very first question. So, so why do you think that the author picked this title? A boy and his dog at the end of the world.
I thought it was about grizz, but then when I read it the second time, it's about the picture that the boy that he was writing to from the picture.
Oh,
You know that?
Oh.
interesting.
Yeah. I thought it was him and Jess or Jip or whatever but it was it was the picture that of the boy that he found with his dog, and he was writing the whole book to that boy, and that was the boy and his dog.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to see it from a different perspective the second time around, huh? Yeah, right. What'd you say, Ken?
No, I agree. I went through the same kind of progression of thinking, first of all, it was going to be, about Grizz and his dog and him going in search of his dog and his whole hero's journey, and all of that. And then I realized, that it really is about that other boy to whom he is writing and revealing his journey and his adventure.
Yeah, and you kind of had to figure out what perspective you were at because of the big reveal, right? And
Right.
And the big reveal, Kelly, was identity, Grizz's identity, and it's that Grizz is a girl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's why it was a boy and his dog, because it's the one in the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So how did it make you feel when you first heard that, you guys, as a
Oh.
reader, you know?
Shocked.
Shocked?
But what I'm curious about when people realized, when did you realize that Grizz was a girl?
I
Right
didn't
now.
until they said it, but I went back and said, oh, there was a few clues. Yeah. How about you,
Yeah.
Ken? Did you realize it early?
I did, and I wasn't sure when I first thought it, but this author uses a number of very traditional kinds of story forms and narrative structures in this book. And one of the ones that he uses a lot is called adumbration, which means foreshadowing. Think
Yes.
about how many times in this book this author introduces something and then says, you'll learn about this later, or you'll understand this later, or we'll
Yeah.
find out about this later. He does that over and over and over. And so when we met Jeanne d'Arc is French for Joan of Arc, Jeanne d'Arc.
Oh,
Oh.
And the minute I said Jeanne d'Arc out loud, I thought, well, what is he adumbrating here? And I thought Joan of Arc pretended to be a boy, dressed like a boy,
Oh.
pretended to be a boy, but was really a girl.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and so that the minute I got Jeanne d'Arc was Jeanne d'Arc, I started thinking, is it possible, you know, that Grizz could actually be a girl? And then there is that scene where John is, where Grizz is naked in front of the fireplace and turns around and says, whoever it was in the room with him, and I can't remember who it was, and says, did he see? What did he see when I turned around? And then I knew, you know, that
Yeah.
what he would have seen was that Grizz was actually a girl.
Yeah.
Oh, so is he trying to masquerade himself, or is it just us confused?
I think it was important for Grizz to masquerade as a boy, you know, for just because in that world that he was operating in, she was operating in, it was to an advantage to pretend to be a boy, you know, for a certain amount of time. But the other thing about this book that was just so, if I can just get this out now, it was so fascinating to me is that, you know, one of the oldest literary storytelling forms in the world is called the hero's journey. It goes all the way back to Homer and the Odyssey, you know, where Odysseus had to go through all of this stuff, and it became a literary form that has 3 acts to it. The first act is called the departure, and it's where you meet the hero in their ordinary life, but then some crisis or something happens that forces the hero out of their ordinary life and into a different world for some kind of adventure, you know. And the second act is called the initiation, and that's where the hero has to go through all of these trials and tribulations and tests and everything in a different world. And for Grizz, that's the mainland, you know. And during the initiation, the second act, the hero meets all of these people who play a very specific role in the hero's journey. And then the third act is called the return, and that's when the hero returns home victorious, having overcome all of these trials and tribulations, but also as a transformed person.
Yes.
You know, and so for Grizz, discovering yourself was coming out, you know, as a girl, having overcome all of that stuff she had to go through,
Right.
you know, on the mainland. So yeah, that to me was just this author using both of those literary structures and forms, the hero's journey. I mean, this is just like he took it out of Homer, you know, in the Odyssey. It's just, you know, we meet Grizz in her native original home, and then this thing happens and she has to go out into the world and go through all these trials, and then she comes home victorious and having overcome all of that. And it's just the structure of this book is just beautiful. It's just
Yeah.
classic. That's one of the reasons that I just really appreciated it and loved this book so much.
And the foreshadowing was it just kept you there. You know, you couldn't put the book down because you wanted to see what this next thing was going to be, next thing, you know, that was going to happen, right? And
Yeah.
there was one other piece in there with Joan d'Arc, which I didn't even realize that because I don't do French, and I want to ask you guys about that for a minute. But when they were doing the bees in the beehive, remember? She got a bee down her shirt. And so she opened her shirt a little bit to get down there and get to the bee. And when she did, Joan d'Arc saw the necklace, right? But Grizz saw her staring at, you know, that part of her body. And she looked down and said, oh, did she see my secret? Oh, no, she didn't see my secret.
Oh,
It was just a necklace.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I didn't realize, I still didn't connect it. I'm like, what secret? You know, I mean, you know, but that would have been a very obvious one too, right? You know, when you go back and think about it, it's like
There's
that.
a couple of references to her secret now that you said that.
Yeah, yeah.
How old? I always thought she was like 10 or 11, but she had to have been older going through all this.
Well,
At
I
one
don't
point,
know,
didn't
because
she
that's
say she
what they
was
said at the
15?
beginning. It says 10, you know, because I went back and
Yeah.
read that a few times, and it says, you know, when Joy was 8, but then 2 years later, I was 10, you know,
Right.
a year older than Joy would have been. And that was right at the time when Brand came, you know. And
Mhm.
so I thought 10, but then it makes me think, which is the next question, well, how long was this journey?
Yeah.
And was she really 10? Or was that, you know?
Who was that she was hiding in the barn? Does it reconcile that later?
What?
The person she was hiding in the barn that she took the marmalade to?
Oh, that was her brother, because they were always cautious about who was coming to see them. And so they had the eldest brother stand there with a gun, Kelly, and, you know, in case something happened with the stranger that came, Brand came, you know, so she was taking the marmalade out to her brother because, you know, the brother was out there guarding.
I must have missed that part somehow.
Yeah.
Because I thought her parents didn't even know she was taking it out to him.
No, they didn't.
Oh. Okay.
Did it ever explain why the world went from 7 billion to 7,000? I couldn't figure that one out.
Well, they
I
said the gelding, which,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that is.
I mean,
Apparently it was chemical.
they didn't say how it happened. No.
Right. Something happened that made it impossible for humans to reproduce.
Right.
Actually, for all mammals
Right.
Right.
to reproduce, and they kind of hinted that it was some kind of chemical or something. You know, one of the other main themes in the book, I think, is him warning us against technological and chemical advancements and being sure that we keep them under control. You know, he sort of seems to be asking the question, how could you be so smart about so many things and so stupid about so many others?
I didn't get that impression, Ken. How did you, what gives you that impression?
But he talks a lot about how technologically advanced the human race had become,
Yeah.
and yet how unaware we remained about
Right.
the dangers that we were creating at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was definitely some stuff in there about climate change,
Yeah.
about things
Oh,
we
yeah.
had done that had caused the climate to
Oh,
change.
yeah. The climate change totally was
Yeah.
in there for sure.
So
You
like, just how could you let this happen?
Yeah. When you were going along, did you think Grizz is kind of is Grizz a reliable narrator?
I thought so until you told me that he was a girl.
Does that make him unreliable?
No, but it just makes you look back to see, is he reliable? You know, she reliable.
How's your office?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like every once in a while I wondered, well, where are you going with this? Or what is that? You know, what is that saying? Are you sure you have it right? Or, you know, because of the way the story was being narrated, you know, Grizz did not seem to be real self-confident about the way they were telling it or how they were telling it. And I don't know, did anybody else feel that there was a little bit of play on Grizz, or did you think totally a reliable narrator?
A really interesting question. I don't think I had spent much time thinking about it while I was reading the book, but now that you mention it, I do remember a few times when I was thinking, is this, you know, how the subjectivity of the narrator, you know, that you have to see things through the narrator's eyes.
Yes.
And the narrator may be in this situation seeing it totally different than you're seeing it as
Right.
an observer instead of a participant.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's it. I kind of saw things a little bit differently than I would expect, you know, than you know, I would expect to see. So, yeah.
But he's talking to us in our world from the future too. So it
Yes,
has to
yes.
be a different perspective.
Sure, totally. Yeah.
It was that perspective was really interesting. I'm right to that part where they go to that stadium or something and the horses get attacked or something.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
way they view the houses and buildings and everything, it so makes you really think what the earth would happen to the earth.
Sure.
Nature
And
takes
that's-
over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how long do you think it was, the journey? You know, from the time he met Brand and took off until he was captured by the cons, until he saw Joy. I mean, the mainland, it sounds like it was a big, huge place that he was traveling. And I was like, where was this? Was this England? Is that what it was? Great Britain, essentially?
I think it was from Scotland to England.
Yeah, I think so too.
He says something about when he looks at the map, what is that country? He said he saw the country. And then the lady, I already can't say her name, said she went in that tunnel under the ocean.
Jean d'Arc.
Remember?
John
Yeah.
d'Arc.
So that would be to England, right? It
Yeah.
went from England to where? Paris or Germany?
France. To France.
France.
To France, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And I don't think there's a clear, you know, it doesn't really tell us how long it was. And
Right.
that might be that might be intentional, you know, on
Yes.
the part of the author to make, in terms of just trying to make this a hero's journey that everybody, you know, the idea of the hero's journey is that everybody does it in their life.
Yeah.
Every single human being has to start out somewhere, and then you have to leave the place you started, and you have to go through a lot of things to get back to sort of where you began and be happy and fulfilled and self-actualized and, you know, successful and all of that. You go through all of this, you know, and so it may be a part of the author's intention to leave that kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
Because
Because you never know how long your journey is going to be.
That's right.
And,
That's
you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the hero's journey is like, as a literary device and form, beginning with Homer and the Odyssey. The idea is
Bless you.
you have one hero who goes through this, but that person is indicative of the human race. that it is our race as humans who are going through this journey.
Yeah.
We started somewhere as a race, and we are now going through the Act 2, which is the initiation, where we go through all kinds of trials and tribulations and problems and crises and everything, in the hopes that we will someday end up somewhere where we are victorious and happy.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the journey. So he may be leaving all that unspecified, Cheryl, just, you know,
Yeah.
just so that we ask about it.
Yeah.
So that we talk about it like this.
Yeah, I guess when they got back, I just thought, wow, I wonder how old he is now. And it made it sound like he was so much older, you know, at that time.
So
But
did he have a baby?
you'll have to read the book, Kelly.
Okay.
Oh, now here's a question, you know, because I found it a little bit humorous when he and Joan d'Arc were trying to communicate, and he would try to sound out all the words that she was saying in French, you know, and he sounded them out on there. And I was like, dang, I wish I knew French, because it was kind of a funny thing. And how do we sound this out? What does this word mean? Does any of you know French? And you were like, oh, I know what that means. I know what that word was, or anything like that. No, I would love to have somebody that knows French go through it and say, oh yeah, I knew what that word was. There's a few obviously that you know, but
But
some
they
of them,
didn't translate
I know they did.
90% of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I just thought it was kind of funny, because I thought surely someone who knows French would be able to take those sounded out words and understand what those were, you know.
And he
but
just
she was trying-
decides sometimes that this one word, what is that? The voodoo or some word like
Yeah.
that. He just made up what he thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. You know. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. All right. This thing is just rich. You know, there's so many descriptions of landscape, his home, the wider world when he goes out into the mainland and stuff. And just wondered, did anything, a certain passage or a certain scene kind of strike you or capture your attention?
When he talked about his dog, I can't remember the line, but it was if something about if you can't not love your dog or save your dog, then what's the use, or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a dog reference, which really a lot of his stuff was dog references.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, they're my life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was struck by him walking into the trees and not having ever been around big trees before.
Oh yeah. So that's Scotland.
Mm.
The islands of
Oh.
Scotland without trees.
Well,
Yeah,
And
I thought it said something about, God, what was it? It was like started with the F, not Finland. Anyway, a country that he saw on that map.
Mm.
Nobody else remembers that?
Wasn't that where Brand was from? Where was Brand was from? Sweden, maybe,
Mm.
or somewhere, Finland, Sweden.
yeah.
Yeah,
From
yeah,
where
yeah.
up there, Norway or
Scandinavia.
something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the relationship with the dog too. But it just, you know, every time I would put the book down, I wanted to go hug my dogs.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other descriptions that I thought were just amazing were, if you imagined that civilization as we know it had ceased like 100 years before, and he used 100 years several times,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, to say everything really ended 100 years ago. And he would describe the way nature had taken over buildings and towns and villages and streets and freeways and highways and bridges, and you know, and a lot of that descriptive stuff was so just, you know, it made you realize that could happen.
Oh,
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
And it made you realize that, you know, when when things are left, our buildings, our stuff, it's not nearly as substantial as we think it is, that nature is more and bigger and, you know, stronger than we are, you know, and then any structure that we've created, really, you know.
And what will it look like to the people we leave the earth to if that ever happens, you know?
Sure. Yeah, and obviously you can relate it to any of the places that have been dug up that are archaeological digs and
Mhm.
stuff where, you know,
Yeah.
things have been dug up from, you know, many times before that. That's Casey.
And the way he describes the couple that went up to their bathtub and had candles,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
like a glass of wine and the candles
Mhm.
and the rust stains in the tub that were probably from their blood because they slit their wrists, and that was pretty powerful.
That was. Yep.
That was also, I think one of the other major themes in the book was, you know, in the face of all of this, how do you remain human? How do you
Yes.
remain empathetic and compassionate in the face of all of this? You
Yeah.
know, and that couple, Bud, you know, the way they had left their home
Oh yeah.
for whoever came
Oh,
next.
yeah.
You know, I just thought that was so generous and empathetic
Yes.
and compassionate. And it was like, you know, even in the face of what these people were facing, how do you remain human?
Yeah.
You know, and empathetic and caring and not just become a selfish person who just does whatever you have to do, you
Yeah.
know, to survive.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded like the guy that ran the cons was kind of like that. What was his name? That Joy killed in the end.
I want to say Ellis or something, but is
Something
that
like
it?
that. You know,
Yeah.
that's my middle name, so we won't say Ellis.
Okay.
But he was kind of a bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean, I was struck by that as well, Ken, you know, that they had a very well kept, and they probably, it made me think, did they create that structure and build it up so that it would for sure be strong enough and stay there for as long as possible, and left so many things available there, just, you know, in case somebody came along, right? Yeah.
What, their house, the couple's house?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What, was it peaches, you think, that was in
Yes, it was
Yeah.
peaches, for sure. Yeah,
Pesh.
yeah,
Pesh?
That's interesting that
Yeah.
his only fruit he really had was an apple
yeah,
in his life. That's,
yeah. I mean, and all of everything he does, right? Everything he counters triggers questions, right? About what world was like when it was crowded,
mhm.
technologically advanced, and so on and so forth. And you know, did it make you think different about how we just kind of take things for granted? Did you start thinking that? I mean, that one thing when you talk about the peaches, you know, where he said, "I'll never forget this day.
Mhm.
This is the day when I first tasted the most wonderful fish," you
Yeah.
know, and it was, and he describes it and says, and it's all its glory. And he says, "I bet you don't remember anything about the first time you had a peach or a, you know, any kind of fruit or whatever." You know, it's like, oh my God, you're right. I've racked my brain trying to remember. It was sometime with my grandmother probably, but I can't remember for sure. You know?
Well, and even he said it in a way that was sort of like he was sorry for us, because
yes,
you'll never experience this
you'll
glory,
never
you
have
know,
this.
and
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's one thing that I don't regret about my life, and I don't want your life for, is that I have the glory of this, taking this, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I still
Any
like
other
it better.
any other things like that that made you stop and think about things that we take for granted, or scenes or something that he said something about?
I didn't read the book. I just was missing you guys, so I thought I'd jump on because I knew you'd be having a good
Aw.
discussion.
Aw.
And I
Good
just
to
I
see
literally
you.
just finished work today, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get online and
Aw.
just
Well,
check that out.
thank you.
Thank you.
We've
We're
missed
glad
you.
did.
I know.
We've missed
I
you
know.
a lot.
Tuesdays is crazy. I don't know. I got to change my life in the fall. So, but sounds all good. I did not get a chance. I have the book, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
In terms of your question, Cheryl, where you talked about, did anything else strike us like that? He, the taste, like something tasting for the first time. He talked a lot about wondering what the world would have sounded like.
Oh,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, he
Yeah.
talks to
Yeah.
the boy. He talks to the boy in the photograph and said, "What did it sound like?
Yeah.
When all these, if there were cars moving on this highway,
Right.
what did it sound like if you were flying through the air?"
Right.
And so there were a lot of things where he was asking questions like that,
Yeah.
about what must it have been like for you, the boy in the picture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This one got to me when they were listening to the music on that gramophone, remember?
Mhm.
And
That would be you. What? You
oh,
could-
I mean, it was, and
Yeah.
and of course I got this, but he says, you probably had hundreds of different bits of music you could listen to. I doubt you were any more amazed at the ability of a machine to capture musicians' performances and hold them through time for you to enjoy whenever you wanted them. And you thought there was anything extraordinary about a car that moved or a plane that flew, And he said, what a luxury to get used to magic like that, to get used to it.
Mhm.
Wow, and it just made me stop and think, yeah, we take so much for granted and we don't think of it as magic. That's for sure.
No.
I was thinking that the other day that the first music Samantha, my daughter, ever really, where she would gather her own music was, I think they're called MP3s. Is that the right name? I never even really got one. So she can't relate. She loves to play my old albums though now. So it is. And we went from that to cassettes to 8-tracks to whatever. I skipped MP3s. I didn't get that, but I have it on my phone now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Here's a question. If you could write a message for Grizz or a Grizz to find in that future, what would it be?
Good question.
Stay as thankful as you are now when you get there. Like
That's
he
a
was
good
so,
one.
from all you, I just listening to the conversation, he had such wonderment and magical, but just stay as thankful about all those things where he was at as he in the future.
Yeah, staying present in the moment or in your life. And wow, yeah, that's huge.
It's funny. My first music that I bought, I was so determined. I was going to buy this 45 record, have the little plastic things in the center.
Right.
And I'd asked for a record player for Christmas, but my first 45 was Sugar Shack.
Oh.
And I don't even know, like when I think about it, I think, okay, my dad made maple syrup and stuff, but why would I pick that? Like, and I think I was maybe, so it would have been 1960. I think I was 8 or 7, but I really wanted that 45 for whatever reason.
Isn't that funny?
And now, and I got rid of it. I should have kept it because it's a collector's item, right?
Sure, absolutely.
But
First one I remember Cheryl having is Crimson and Clover.
Yeah, that was one of mine.
Yes, I remember that too.
Yep.
Well, I'm reading are listening to a series right now. It's called The Clan of the Cave Bear. Has anybody read that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The whole
Yes,
series,
yes,
right?
yes.
And the movie.
And
the
It's a movie?
is
Yeah,
Dude,
there's a
I
movie.
haven't watched the movie, and I looked at a picture of it, and I just can't even, that is not Ayla to me, but anyway, it relates like the medicine, they carries his little kid around with them, it relates to that. And, you know, I'm on the very last book of that series, so
Oh, wow.
it's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. I remember that.
Think of the ways they lived.
Yep.
Yeah.
All
One
right.
of the other
Holy
things that I noticed that was interesting to me was the fact that civilization as we know it, apparently, you know, is like, has been going for around 100 years. The new words that they had made up,
Yeah.
they have new words, you know, I don't have one right in front of me right now. I can't remember one, but there were a number of times, you know, where they had a word and you could tell what they meant by it. It's just not a word that we ever used,
Yeah.
you know, to describe that or for that purpose.
Yeah.
So that language was evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did it
Yeah.
seem like to anyone else that what was left of the world, like when he went to the city compared to where he lived, it seemed trashy. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you want to go there? I would want to stay out in the country where there wasn't all that stuff.
Well, and that leads to my next question. So thank you, Kelly.
Oh, good. Plan that.
If you were one of the 0.00001% that were left and who could still have children, and you decided, I'm going to go live somewhere quiet too, you know, like other people, and avoid being with these, this last generation or whatever, where would you go? Where would it be?
Not Texas.
I was going to say the same thing. Not Texas.
Middle of the country if it was America.
The mountains
The
of
Swiss
New
Alps.
Mexico.
What'd you say
Mountains of
about the
where?
mountains?
The mountains of New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Is
The
the
best-
soil good there? That's what I think. About it. It's so hard to grow stuff here. I want to go somewhere where it's easier.
Oh my God, the
I'd go
biggest,
somewhere tropical.
Tropical? Yeah. Yeah, you love the heat and you would love
I do.
that. Yeah.
Too. And also because food is much more plentiful in tropical places.
You can grow your own.
Yeah, there's lots of fruit and vegetables, and always there's fish and, you know, and all that stuff. But I just can't take cold, so that's the first thing that went through my mind.
Yeah.
You know, don't go somewhere where it can get cold.
Yeah, because if you don't have electricity and heat, you have to do like they didn't have fires. So can I ask you one thing? Does anybody have an impression of where they are in that Clan of the Cave Bear? Where in the world?
It's been years since I
too,
read
years.
the books and
Yeah.
saw the movie.
Uh,
I can't remember.
Africa. They're
Africa,
in, like
Janet?
northern Africa. And you know, pretty far north.
Like
So it was
Morocco
really
area
cold.
or somewhere around there? Yeah.
The Mediterranean area.
Yes, I think so.
So it gets,
That would
it
make
was
sense.
really
Makes sense.
cold there then?
Well, they talk about cold. They talk about the blankets that the fur
The
blankets.
glaciers, like when they're going home, they go across this huge glacier.
Yeah,
But Kelly, that, you know, the climate had changed, you know, this stuff changed so much, yet, you know, you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. All right, one last question for this one. This is a fun question. One old record for Grizz and Jean d'Arc to find and play. What would it be?
The Beatles, Twist and Shout.
Whoa!
Classic or popular?
What?
What's that?
Whatever you think, what you'd want to leave them.
If it were classic, it would have to be Wagner. And if it were popular, it would have to be Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That'd be an
That.
awesome one.
all we are saying is give peace a chance.
Mm.
Mm.
I don't know, some Bruce Springsteen would be good.
There you go. Yeah.
Imagine.
Imagine.
yeah.
Oh, imagine, yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to hold your hand.
there you go.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
It'd be the whole album. So you have to picture what else is on that album.
yeah.
I don't know.
I'd have to find some James Taylor.
I was
think.
gonna say that.
You've got a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah,
James.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one I
Sweet
love,
baby James.
Cheryl. Sunshine on My Shoulders. I just think that's just
Oh,
listen to
yeah,
that. I can
Yeah.
never not listen to that and feel just a whole different level.
warmth and,
Yeah,
yeah,
just the spiritual song. Gosh.
yeah.
Great
Yeah.
question. Great
But
question.
Simon and Garfunkel, I do think they go across generations, and I can't listen to their music. I love every album they ever put out.
Of
Yeah.
who?
Simon and
Simon and
Garfunkel.
Garfunkel.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Yeah.
Me too.
yeah. It would have to be the Winnie the Pooh song.
Yes.
Pooh Corner. Anyway,
We're gonna
All
have
right,
to play
guys.
that for Joe. Hey, we can play it for the whole audience once I finally get it.
no, you can't. Okay.
Mhm. Cheryl sang that with her guitar at my daughter's baby shower.
The Winnie the Pooh song?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
The house at Pooh
Corner.
Corner.
House at Pooh
House
Corner.
at Pooh Belt?
yeah.
Yeah, the return to Pooh Corner. Yeah.
So let's, getting over the Pooh Corner. And does anyone have any other comments before we start talking about books for next month?
No, I'm gonna read it now, though.
Just thank you, Bud. Thank you,
Yes,
Bud.
thank you, Bud. That was
Yeah, that
awesome.
was-
This was
Yes,
a remarkable
yay.
book. I just love this book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
And I see you've got another one written up here.
Yeah,
That's cool. Green Lights by Matthew
I
McConaughey.
have that book.
I just started it.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is it political, Bud?
Mm.
Not yet. I'm just starting it. It's his
Political.
life, but it's his philosophies and you know, it's I don't know any, you know, he's just a celebrity to me.
Yeah,
But he's
like a
really-
memoir?
Yeah, he's really insightful and very smart.
Yep.
And he grew up just this country hick kid, you know.
Hmm.
Mother was a hick and father was a kind of a mean old pipe seller.
I'd like to know if you feel like he's honest when you finish reading it.
Oh, yeah. You've read it?
I've read most of it. I didn't like read every single word. I kind of skipped through some of it, but that's how I kind of felt, is that he took pieces of his life and put them together to make it more dramatic
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe weren't played out exactly like they are in the book.
Well, he's an actor.
Well,
Yeah.
I love him. He's like one of my favorite stars, and of course went to UT Hook 'em Horn. So I would never, I would never say a negative word about him. But the book lacked authenticity. I don't know how to say if that's exactly what I'm trying to say or not.
Hmm.
That was just kind of, it was show offy or something.
Yeah. Well, what about this one? You were talking about, Ken, and I think Barb found it, Joan, a novel of
Yes.
Joan of Arc.
Yes, you know, we had the reference to Joan of Arc
Yeah.
in this one. And I've read several reviews of this new book. It is historical fiction. It is a fictionalized novel about the life of Joan of Arc. But the way it's presented is that it's written from a kind of a modern feminist, you know, who was this person, you know, who accomplished these things, starting as a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
You know, she led the armies of France, you know, in victory after victory after victory, and then was burned at the stake, you know, as a witch. And she was the thing that she was actually burned to death for, which most people don't know, was being a transvestite. She was actually burned for wearing men's clothes.
Oh, wow.
That was the charge they finally got her
Wow.
on. So I've read several reviews of the book, and it just sounded really fascinating to me. She's always fascinated me anyway, but just
Yeah.
because of her gender bending, life and just everything she did and accomplished. She also kind of falls into the hero's journey model,
Yeah.
of a person who was confronted by a historical situation that caused her to leave her home and just go into a totally different world.
Yeah.
So it just sounded interesting to me.
Sure.
How close is the book to real history?
I don't know. It's called historical fiction,
Yeah.
which means
So-
it will be based in her life and in the historical period in which she lived, but the actual situations can be fictionalized.
Yeah.
So I haven't read it, so I don't know. The reviews were interesting to me.
So we've got these two books. Anything else right now?
I thought we'd already picked the book. I don't know why.
This was the second one we picked.
Yeah, this was the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
But we have these that are left over. The Woman Upstairs, Deadly Solution, A Column of Fire, and The House We Grew Up In. That we had left over from
Yeah.
the prior one.
That's good that you have those. I don't even have those with me here.
Because I want to read those. So I'll eventually read them all.
Oh. Well, what do y'all think?
I'd
I'm
like to
an
read
early fan
both of
Joan
these
Arc.
books that are up here now.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, the McConaughey one and
I love Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
what's it
I
called again?
was-
I'm
I
just
Green
I was
Light.
almost disappointed he
Called
didn't enter
Green
the
Light.
governor's race this time,
Me
Yeah.
too.
because I think he will end up in politics. I think he's that smart, and I think he's that committed civically, to justice and trying to do what's right.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to do both of these and pick one for next month and then one for October?
That's
What's
me.
the Joan of Arc one called, Ken?
It's called Joan.
So much.
Yeah, it's called Joan. A
Catherine J.
novel
Chin.
of Joan of Arc.
It's in the chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And Green Lights is also in the chat. Well, if we do that, are you guys agreeable to that? Which one do you want to read first?
This one.
Doesn't matter. Since Bud's already reading that one, let's do that
I don't
one.
want
Alright,
to read it
we'll do-
twice.
So he won't have to read it twice.
All right, we'll read Green Lights first. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I know about
All right,
that
so we'll read that one, and that'll be our book for September. And then our book for October will be Joan, a novel of Joan of Arc. Okay,
Okay.
and
Find my green lights and read again.
I'm trying to think the exact dates. I can give you the exact dates so that you'll have them here. I think Joby has them too, but the
yeah,
27th of September
Yep.
will be Green Lights, and October is going to be the 25th.
Okay,
All right,
got it.
Good.
awesome.
Yay.
Any final thoughts? Any final things? I love that you guys picked out two good books here. Thank you. I'm excited.
What was your chicken thing you were talking about?
Oh, that we're gonna fix?
No, somewhere in the notes, you said something about Cheryl's chicken something.
Chicken Little.
Oh, yeah, and
Oh.
we're doing a sanctuary kitchen in 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks? On September 6th. And I'm doing what I call Chicken Little. And
Okay.
it's really chicken with lemon and capers, and I've done some different things with it, not hugely different, but yeah.
It's chicken scallopini.
whatever. It's
If you
chicken.
want to
noodle.
look up a recipe,
Does
I've
it,
had
does it
and
include
it's
wine?
Delicious. It is delicious.
it is
And
delicious.
it doesn't include wine, but that might be a nice addition. Maybe I'll have to add that to the sauce. That would be nice. A nice white wine added to that sauce would be lovely. So,
I had that today at
Yeah.
what Cheesecake Factory. I had chicken.
no, you didn't, because it wasn't mine.
No, it wasn't chicken little, it was chicken scallopini.
Okay.
Samantha, I told her we have to watch it next week, so I'm gonna be at her house, and she goes, oh, I loved that, except the capers. I said, I can't believe you didn't like it. She probably would now. We'll have to see. So she'll be on here watching with me.
Okay.
That's
And
cute.
then the next one that we have in October, because we have 2 in September, the book club and that, and then October, Ken is going to do a travelogue, right, Ken?
Oh.
Yes, to Cambodia.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
It's just, we're going to make several stops. We're going to go to the killing fields,
Mhm.
Pol Pot, and
Mhm.
that's a very, very difficult thing to talk about and see. But we'll go from there to the presidential palace and then to Angkor Wat, which is the most amazing place I've ever been to on the earth. And I've been a lot of places on the earth, and Angkor Wat is the most amazing single place I've ever
Wow.
been to.
That's in
and
Cambodia?
yes,
Angkor Wat? Mhm.
Siem Reap. It's in a place called Siem Reap, which is in the sort of in the northwestern quadrant of Cambodia. And then I've got a special treat for you to take you. So I was traveling with my friend Mel White. We were going all through Asia, and when we were in Cambodia, he said, "I want to take you to this special place in Phnom Penh, in the capital Phnom Penh." And I had no idea where we were going until we got there, but just wait until you see this. It's just the happiest, most beautiful, wonderful thing. And he surprised me with, and I'm going to surprise you with it.
Cool.
Okay.
And then I think we were doing Barb's travelogue,
Oh,
right?
yeah, Barb
We were
was
gonna
gonna,
finish it
The
in
third one, yeah.
September. When is it? September. Do you remember, Barb, the official date?
Not September, Cheryl.
Huh?
Your September plus Sanctuary Chicken is
Oh,
September.
the Egyptian was the 20th. Yeah, right,
Egypt is the
right
20th.
before, yeah, the
That's right.
27th is the book club, the 20th is the Egyptian, the last of the Egyptian tour, yeah.
Okay, so the 6th is the chicken. What's the 13th?
Right.
Nothing.
So over 100
Oh.
photos.
Oh, this was
And-
our 100th session, right? Was it?
The 20th is gonna
I've
be.
got that at home, hon.
Huh?
I think it's in 2 weeks. I have that at home.
Oh,
We're about
okay.
to hit our 100th Sanctuary Online session, which is
We're
somewhat
getting very
unbelievable
close.
and wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah,
So we have
Oh.
3 in September, Chicken Little on the 6th, Egypt on the 20th, and book club Green Lights on the 27th.
And when is your travel one, Ken?
October
11th,
11.
yeah. And then we'll have book club on the 25th with Joan of Arc. And then after that, we start CLM.
Oh, really?
So we'll be letting you know about that.
All right.
All right, gang.
we think
Thank you very much.
Fun
Thank you,
tonight,
Bud. It was
y'all.
an excellent
Thank you.
book.
Thank you, Bud.
yeah, thank
I
you.
didn't,
It was
and I
nice to
heard the
listen to
title.
you.
I didn't think I'd like it that much, but man, it was awesome.
Yeah.
You know.
It really was.
Absolutely. Great book. Yep.
Great.
thanks, Bud.
Okay.
All right.
Hold
Bye,
Joe in
everybody.
our heart.
For
Guys have
that
a
memory,
great
Barb.
evening.
Cheryl,
Good night.
Take
It was
care.
good to see you, Jane Ann.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be back.
Recording.
Good night.
up on top, Cheryl.
Bye.
Good night, y'all. Up on top, honey.
Night, night.